Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Forbes. I'm the California National Party chairman and host of Free the Bear.
I'm here with Todd Barstow, our expatriate chief, coming straight from Davao, Philippines. And we're going to be talking about a very simple subject, but again, something we want to get across. The simple subject is, what is the California National Party? Now, the California National Party has been around since 2014. The California National Party is a movement for civic nationalism in California. Now, what does all those fancy terms mean? Well, basically, we want to have our own nation state. We want to have a California that is chiefly independent from the federal government. We're not trying to be independent in the sense that all of a sudden, we're not part of the United States people, the American citizens, or anything like that. We're not throwing up a wall. We're not throwing up a border between us and Arizona and Nevada, something like that. What we are trying to do is basically handle our own affairs. We have a lot on our plate in California, a hell of a lot on our plate. We have something where we have the fifth largest economy in the world, sometimes considered the fourth, which means that we're on par with Germany, more or less. Our population, more or less, is the same size as Canada. And right now, in our political system in the United States, we are only represented by 2 California senators. And we're beaten out by, the entire South when it comes to representation, even though the entire South is nowhere near our population. And what we need
certainly not in terms of gross income.
No, and again, everyone hearing that voice, that is Todd Barstow, our expatriate chief, coming again from the Philippines. And yes, again, we have, a project that we want to do where we can actually handle our own affairs. We need to have something where we can actually take care of the California people because if you have not noticed by recent events in this country, the federal government has never really done a good job of actually taking care of anyone in the United States whatsoever. And we need to focus on our own affairs here. And we are an interesting party. We are a party that is a hybrid of ideas. We have some from the left and some from the right. I would say the libertarian right, not the conservative Christian nationalist right. And
Thank God.
Thank God for that. Yeah, no pun intended.
If there is a God.
No pun intended whatsoever. But yeah, so again, our whole plan is that we have the ability to handle our own domestic and even foreign affairs outside of federal government control. That means free of Ted Cruz's. That means free of Donald Trump's. It means free of, again, like the Joe Biden's and Kamala Harris's of the world as well. And what we want is, again, the ability to actually tackle huge problems we have already in our nation state of California. We have homelessness to the roof. We have, again, environmental concerns. We have water concerns. We have forest fires that have been devastating our communities. But again, the federal government has never really come through with any kind of plan to make sure we can actually protect ourselves, especially with the fact that so much of California is actually under federal direct control through their land ownership. So the whole project for the CNP is really, again, priority one is to take care of the people here. Now, how do we exactly do that, Todd? What exactly, again, we want to do, right? There is policies that we have put forward and that we want to actually keep talking about. One is, again, for example, Universal Basic Income, UBI. This has been a catchphrase for a while. Andrew Yang brought this up during his presidential campaign, and we are trying to implement that in our state. Now, why are we trying to do that in our state? Well, our nation state, I should say. Well, the fact is that we're the home of Silicon Valley. We have all the processes that the entire world are using when it comes to either social media or, again, more importantly, artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we need to have something where all these jobs are going to be either reduced or completely eliminated. And guess what? There's no successful society that can have 40% unemployment. We can't be turning into England during the Industrial Revolution and have masses of people with no ability to have a job or no ability for any kind of pay or anything like that. Now, chances are that there will never be a 40% unemployment. Let's knock on wood with that. But what would happen definitely is that a lot of people are going to be working jobs that cannot support their livelihood.
And a lot of people are already doing that, not just in California, all through the U.S.
Yeah, and the federal government
people are working jobs that are paying the absolute minimum. right? And if you have just one person working in a household, uh, that's why you have so many people just at or just above the poverty level.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
I
people in
think
debt.
when the government counts those statistics, they say, "Oh, these people are above the poverty line. All right, we don't need to count them. They're fine. They're making ends meet. Blah 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 blah." But they're not. Most of those people don't have health care. Most of those people don't have adequate child care situations. They don't have adequate education situations. How would CNP address that in California? Those specific things.
Well, again, like really it kind of comes down to first, again, UBI. Second would be universal health care. But going back to just the ability to have money in your pocket, that's going to be the best way to actually have something that akin to what was happening in the 1950s, where again, you could have maybe someone, one kind of breadwinner in the household who could take care of, the nuclear family. uh, you know, one spouse works, one spouse takes care of the kids, probably two kids. Again, universal basic income coming through and actually giving people, again, a certain amount in their pocket per month that they can do for whatever. And there has been multiple studies. You can look this up. I'm not going to bore anyone listening to this by, giving a laundry list of, again, sources, but it has happened in localized environments and it has had a huge impact. Because imagine, again, this is throwing out a number here. If you have an extra $500 in your pocket per month, that is something where you can help yourself with, again, rent. You can help yourself just be food secure. You can also, again, for example, just pocket it for a while, save it up with your friends, and maybe start a business. Something you always wanted to do for like the longest time, which has not been the ability because companies, either because of their need to always be basically, sucking up to the shareholders, will never do. They'll never try to raise wages unless they're aggressively forced to by unions. And at the same time, too, if you have a system where there is that bit of a cushion, people will be able to be more creative and actually go out into the world and be like, listen, this is my great idea. I've been saving my UBI for a few months. Maybe this was going to help to actually, bring forth an idea that could actually change the world. I mean, imagine again how many people in poverty right now with big brains who are just do not have any means whatsoever to actually get anywhere near their dreams. That's one of the biggest things that we need to really kind of tackle head on. Now, that being said, UBI is going to be important because especially in areas outside the main coastal communities of California, if we're talking like Inyo County, what is it again? Anything that's like closer to the more rural mountainous areas. I mean, their per capita income is so much lower than the rest of the state. And these people, again, are stuck in kind of basically dead-end jobs, don't have the ability to do much, and are just basically trying to scrape together enough money for rent. And that is a drain on the entire economy because we're missing out on so many opportunities of people coming up with the next, Starbucks is not a great example, but the next Starbucks, or again, the next, whatever. Even like maybe, again, Apple, for example, was started in a garage, right? Who has another great idea for the next Apple that just can't pull it off because they just do not have the means because they're basically living hand to mouth every month.
Right.
So that is just something we're going to have a more dynamic economy. And then also, too, it's been proven in study after study. And again, I'm not going to bore the audience with all these sources. Google is here. You want to look this up. But anytime it's been implemented, people, they get housing, they get something better for their lives. It's always been an improvement. It's never been a detriment. No one's just sitting around waiting for the UBI check. I mean, yes, are there going to be some people who are probably going to just, sit on the rear end their entire life, not do anything, and you just eat Cheetos and, play PlayStation all night? Sure. But at the same time, too, they're not going to be on the streets begging for change. They're not going to be breaking into your car to get a few extra bucks. There's going to be
I was gonna say those people would probably be doing that same thing without UBI or no.
Yeah, and in much more detrimental fashion for the rest of the community.
Right.
So that is one of our chief platform planks. The other one, again, universal health care is going to be something we need to do. This country will never pull it off. Either a Supreme Court dominated by Trumpsters is going to shoot it down from day one, or again, the Senate, which is so lopsided and always kind of ready built for conservative reaction, and also basically where any good ideas go to die. Again, Republican right will never allow for universal health care. especially again too, like let's remember something as well. California National Party is not a party of disaffected Democrats. We're not just again a party that's just anti-Republican. We're also anti-Democrats, and in a lot of ways, Democrats have been such a drag on that idea as well. I mean, we've been trying to have universal health care in the state of California, and it's it's tough because again, we're just a state at this point. So again, so much of our money is paying off, these red staters sitting in their trailers, collecting, Medicaid and things like that. These people, again, who are using our money for whatever purposes, especially, again, a hugely bloated national defense budget. These people, they're happy to take our resources, but don't allow us to tackle anything here. So if Democrats in the state of California want to have universal health care, well, part of them is going to just start calculating and going, well, we can't afford it because our tax money is going to the national central government. That's one. But then the other thing, too, is that even if there is a calculus of some sort of like, okay, we can actually have universal health care in the state of California before independence, well, Newsom and a lot of establishment Democrats always throw up a roadblock. They always have a reason why they can't do it. And so we have to really at least break the paradigm that, we are sending so much money to the federal government, to these red states, and at the same time, too, again, making it less likely that Democrats can now have a reason to go, well, I don't know about that because, it's going to cost XYZ, or again, like, whatever kind of like, minutia of nonsense they can keep pulling out to keep blocking universal health care. So that's the second plank of the party. Everyone needs to have health care. Everyone needs to be able to not, basically be bankrupted. I mean, again, personal experience, my mother had cancer. She passed away from cancer. If she didn't have Medicare, because she literally turned 65 at the start of her illness. If she didn't have that, we probably would be bankrupt. And I know that happens for so many people across the country when they have private insurance. And so we want to have a system where, a quote unquote public option is in place. If there's some people who want to have a private option, God bless them, don't see the point, but we would have that as well. And
it's unconscionable that in the supposedly wealthiest nation in the world, getting sick can be not only a death sentence for the person getting sick, but also essentially a death sentence for their family who's left with hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars in medical expenses. It's unconscionable.
Well, the idea that medical debt is a thing is, again, it's unforgivable, excuse me, for a system to actually operate like that. There's just no way, again, that you could say this is a moral society.
That's corporatocracy. That's all that is. That corporation dictating what happens to you after you die.
Yes, and again, it's inflicting emotional pain on top of the physical pain and all the other kind of pains that you get from, again, having someone who is sick. And their only fault was they got sick. And again, that's, it's not like they made a bad investment decision. It's not like they're gambling in Vegas for 3 weeks and they got, wiped out or something like that. Again, it's just, they got sick. And American society is a little bit too comfortable with just letting the idea go. I think a new California republic would definitely make sure that that's a thing of the past and join the rest of the industrialized world. Because literally any developed country throughout the entire planet has a universal healthcare system. People are not going bankrupt left and right. America's the only one comfortable with that. And California Democrats, again, have never pushed back enough on that. Oregon federal Democrats have, snorted in the direction of universal health care, but they gave us that watered down BS of Obamacare, which, did have a couple positives. I mean, for example, pre-existing conditions were taken out. That's great. But, healthcare costs keep escalating every year. And it's the biggest drain besides rents on the average person. So we want to make sure, again, that is a thing of the past. And we can only do that through California independence. I cannot believe that in any time frame where Donald Trump is brought back into office by, so many votes and so many electoral votes that, again, the rest of the country is going to someday wake up and go, yeah, that was actually a good idea. Again, what happened with Donald Trump was basically a form of moral and national suicide. And
I got that feeling too. It's like people they gave up and said, all right, fuck it. let's just all commit suicide because that feels essentially like what's gonna happen. Even for his diehard people, like I was saying earlier, somewhere in the Midwest, Walmart said that if the tariffs went through, they're gonna have to raise prices on everything in the superstore at Walmart there, and then people were losing their shit. You can't raise the prices. This. Your Lord and Savior Donald Trump is doing that, not Walmart. I don't like Walmart especially, but they got to pass that cost off to consumers, right? That's the way it works. That's
Well,
the way
yeah, if you're in a
trickle down economics works or whatever.
right, I mean, again, it's a capitalist society, and again, that is their again, they're not going to be just, eating the cost and it's like letting consumers slide because again, they have their stockholders or whatever. They have to keep appeasing. And yeah, that's all it is. It's going to be a built-in sales tax. And again, unfortunately, our educational system is not explained to people what tariffs are. I think that they think this is a funny little, name for a way to put it to China, right? Or put it to Mexico or
Yeah.
Canada. But they don't realize that, no, the way it works is that, you slap it on there. Well, these companies are not going to be paying that. They're going to actually make sure you pay for it. And again, that's
And
economics 101. Again, tariffs have a reason for certain things. It's actually a rational means of economic, policy, but not in the way that it's being used right now whatsoever.
I got a bit of a hard question for you. I think it's a hard question. You might not think it's a hard question because you might have a ready answer. Going back to Walmart, eh, I think it's safe to assume there are Walmarts in California. I'm pretty sure there are, right?
There
There
are
are.
tons, yes.
Yeah. I figured as much. I haven't been in the U.S. almost 20 years, so I wasn't sure. But anyway, okay. So it's my understanding that Walmart pays their employees so little that a huge percentage of them are on food stamps or on some sort of food assistance that's provided by the federal government because Walmart doesn't pay enough for them to survive. Sort of in line like what we were talking about earlier. You have a job that you work 40 or 50 hours a week and it's not enough to survive. If the CNP is successful in performing a Cal exit and, you know, doing everything that they want to do, how would this new system of governance address something like that with a corporation like Walmart? How would you I don't know if you could force it, but how would you make Walmart pay people more so that they would not be on government assistance? Is there a way to do that?
There is a way. It's just there's a couple ways. Some direct action, some not direct action. Like so, for example, the California National Party, let's say, runs an independent California Republic, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is that to really empower unions. Have actually unions have the ability to organize freely and actually organize, their respective sector. And that they should actually have an ability to go into these companies' areas and actually be able to pitch the idea of a union and actually make sure that people who are organizing for a union are free from any kind of retaliation. Because again, people, there's stuff in the books right now where again, there's supposed to be means to make sure that these companies can't retaliate, but they find out something. They've done it multiple times. If you're late for 2 minutes on one day, well, again, that's a fireable offense, right? So again, they will pull that stuff against organizers. That would be one thing, is to make sure that we have a National Labor Relations Board with some teeth to it that can actually enforce actions where organizers are protected. That would be the first thing. The second thing too is ending the idea of at-will employment, which basically is a fancy way to say that you can be fired for any reason, for whatever, at any time in a company in the United States. And that is pretty much
how do you get past that? Contractual employment?
basically setting up a
employment term.
Yeah, setting up something in European terms of contractual employment, where the person, again, there's very strict rules about why you need to be actually fired for.
Mm-hmm.
And then there has
there has to be some sort of gross misconduct to actually be fired for cause.
Basically, a kind of a way of due process for the workplace.
Right.
I mean, this gets a little bit stretched out, when it comes to say professors or teachers or things like that, where again, you always heard the term tenure.
Yeah.
Well, tenure, I mean, again, that gets abused a few times because again, you just allow lackadaisical people just operate in their profession for no good reason because it's a little bit hard to fire them. There can be a middle ground, And the middle ground starts with, again, having a due process thing. It's like, again, if someone's going to get fired, it has to be for something like, again, gross misconduct. Or again, like, for example, the company can prove that there are basically, bleeding to death money-wise, and they would have to have layoffs, right? Because, again, when we are living in a capitalist society, some companies might go belly up. And again, they can't afford employees. Well, they have to prove it, though, to somebody. They have to prove it to a National Labor Relations Board. They can't just, pull it out of their rear. If they want to have XYZ reasons, because again, right now, like, they can just fire anyone for any time. So again, if you're trying to organize, well, guess what? Like, good luck proving it in court that there was a retaliation that you're an organizer and they took you out. Because they can just say, well, he was late. Oh, well, we had to pick people in this certain branch to get fired because we're losing money here, blah, blah, blah. They can always pull out, they can do the ass pull of ass pulls anytime they want. And so that has to be eliminated first, and that has to be controlled. The other thing, too, is that we've actually started this in the state of California. This was one of the more interesting things Gavin Newsom did. The CMP is not a fan of Gavin Newsom for multiple reasons, but Newsom is a politician that can sometimes accidentally trip over good ideas in his career. And one of the things that he did put together was what's called the Fast Food Council. And basically that is a council where it's a collection of people from labor, people employed from the state, and then business owners who are working together in the council to set guidelines, regulations, and wages for that particular sector. So it's a negotiated kind of, process where, again, like, what makes rational sense while also protecting the workers at the same time too. Because otherwise, if you go too far down the road of, like, government control, well, you don't want to end up like the Soviet Union where, every job was basically run like the DMV, right?
Right.
No one gets fired, nothing gets done. There's no, everything stagnates into just basically a gray mess.
Right.
And again, anyway, like that council idea, Newsom put together, and again, I don't think it's his original idea, but he did sign off and did promote it. I think that needs to be applied to all sectors. We need to have labor trustees. We need to have business owners, and then some people from the state government as well, to basically see how we can raise wages in a rational way. How can we have actual, like, safety regulations that make sense for that particular sector? Because again, you can't really do a one size fit all for the entire, economics of the entire nation state, right?
Sure.
So again, that council idea, again, putting that together, making sure that, again, we have an actual rational policy for that particular sector that needs to be put in place. So, like, yeah, going back again, if you have universal basic income, if you do have, again, like, the elimination of at will, making more contractual, making more there's actual protections, due processes for firing, making sure there's a sector council controlling that particular sector of economic activity. This will all help to kind of boost up wages to the point that the idea of, like, someone being on food stamps or working 40 hours a week would be